Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bounty Hunt, a Utini Network podcast where we hunt down all the extra content in the Star Wars universe. I'm your host, Eric Eilerson, and joining me on this week's hunt is the full house, the full cast. About 24 hours before we do this for a second time. Starting off, we have the now fully lit, in many ways, Dr. Corey Helton.
Hello. Worked on my lighting a little bit. Doing good. Recovering from a festive bachelor party weekend for one of my very good friends, John. He's getting married. We had him up to Asheville. I had a good time. I am still not totally recovered. But I'm excited, man. I got some new artwork last week. I ordered it. It should be here soon and get this office slowly put together. I still don't know what I'm going to do with this electrical panel over here. I was gonna cover it with some Star Wars wall stuff, but I don't know, it didn't look right. So if you got ideas what I can do with that to make it Star Warsy, let me know.
Patreon goal: design Corey's office.
Yeah, seriously,
it's coming. But you know who does have their office fully put together, or rather their whole room the same as it's always been, because he has changed nothing? Dr. Charles Hankel, what's up, buddy?
That's right, I've changed nothing. Feel free to, I don't know, make suggestions for my background. With full transparency, I'm moving in a month to a month and a half. So, it won't be long. But yeah, we're here for now.
Well, I'm glad you're here. If y'all want to see Charles at his best, it's talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's during the NBA Finals in a Slack chat. Great time talking about the majesty of Steph Curry. But of course, Steph Curry's shooting is not nearly as majestical as the mere sitting presence of Wes Jenkins. What's up, dude?
What's up, everyone? It's a tad warm in Texas. For the past 2 weeks, I've burned my face and a little bit on my belly and some on my arms. So I've been outside this whole weekend, and I'm super glad to be inside talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi because I have questions and I have critiques, but I do have questions nonetheless that all y'all can probably help me with.
Well, perfect. I'll tell you what you need, Wes. You need to go into a back-to-tank on Jabeam. And as Wes said, we are here talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 4 this week. If you're new to Bounty Hunt, welcome. This is kind of our more laid-back recap show. We're going to recap the latest episode of Star Wars television. Full spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't seen it yet, I don't believe you. I don't believe you just clicked on this without watching Obi-Wan Kenobi. But if you did, make sure to watch the episode first. We're going to briefly recap it. Then we're going to talk about things we loved about it, questions we have, like Wes said, and all that good stuff. Well, without further ado, let us jump right into the recap. We open this episode with Obi-Wan himself in a back-to-tank on Jabeam. We have a little back-and-forth vision between Obi-Wan having memories of Vader and Vader in his own back-to-tank suffering. But Obi-Wan eventually gets out, and we're introduced to the crew of the Path, including Roken, Sully, and Wade, in addition to Tala from last episode. Tala agrees to take Obi-Wan to Fortress Inquisitorius, which gets name-dropped in live action, and it's awesome, to rescue Leia from Reva, who kidnapped her at the end of last episode, and we are on our way. In the fortress, Reva attempts to interrogate Leia, but for some reason, Leia is suspiciously strong and resistant to the Force. What could it mean? I don't know. Meanwhile, Tala bluffs her way through security and gives Ben Kenobi access to the base, where he sneaks around long enough to discover what the Empire is hiding in the basement. The frozen bodies of tons of Jedi, including Terrace Nube, our boy. Rest in peace. We love you so much. Back up top on the upper levels, Tala provides a final distraction, which allows Obi-Wan to save Leia from a torture chamber. And they make a break for the exit that includes lightsaber antics, holding back a literal sea with the Force, and they almost make it all the way back to their ship before Reva catches up to them and calls Tala a traitor. The trio, however, are saved last minute by a couple T-47 speeders that airlift them off the platform on the way back to Jabeam. But unfortunately, Wade, who we met earlier, is killed by Reva on his exit. Vader then confronts Reva about her failure in capturing Obi-Wan, but she reveals that she let them go intentionally and placed a tracker that will lead them to the Path Network, a tracker within our precious droid, Lola. All right, so that was episode 4. Back in the day, a Bounty Hunt, we would do a 1 to 10 rating scale, which we have abolished because we just want to talk about how much we like these shows. Why do we want to put a number on it? It's not what we do anymore. However, I will go around the horn, guys, and let's just start off with very basic impressions. Charles, I'm going to go to you first, man. We did all 3 episodes in last week's episode of Bounty Hunt. Obviously, we were massive fans. What did you think about episode 4?
I still loved it. I still thought it was incredible. I watched it the first time through really early in the morning, like I've been doing, and I loved it. And then I fell a little bit into the Twitter sphere of seeing all these quote unquote hot takes that aren't hot takes. They're just complaining. And I was like, man, did I really enjoy that as much as I think I did? And I went back and I rewatched again. And the darndest thing happened, guys. I enjoyed it more the second time.
Darndest.
Yes!
I loved it.
Yes.
I know we'll get into details, but man, it felt good to see Kenobi just using that saber and showing a bit more life than he did in episode 3. So I was really stoked to see all of that. The way he held back the ocean, like you mentioned, Eric. I mean, there's just some really, really iconic moments. I loved it.
Love that. Yeah, we are definitely going to be touching on his continued kind of growth back into General Kenobi form a little bit later on. One of our bullet points we want to hit, because you're right, that was so evident here. Him popping up in the darkness, him smacking the lasers all over the place was great. Corey, how about you, man?
Yeah, I also enjoyed this episode a lot. I, too, unfortunately, got a little sucked into some of that Twitter talk as well. Charles, it definitely colored the episode a little bit for me, but I haven't seen it again, but I have gone back. We've talked about it so much. It feels like I have seen it again. Yeah, I'm definitely much in really enjoyed this episode camp. And I would love to talk about that. I was trying to find it, Eric. Do you remember that tweet thread that got really viral this week of it was a long bunch of tweets about how fans have kind of stopped watching Star Wars just to enjoy? Do you remember who that? You know who that was?
There was a TikTok creator called Soups that had this video about how he didn't like Obi-Wan and how we weren't getting the Clone Wars stuff. All these things we were promised. And then there was this stitch on TikTok of this guy, I forget his name, but this inspired a lot of it, because he said it is a difference between enjoying storytelling and just wanting cameos and content. And a lot of the more toxic folks, and we're not talking toxic like, obviously there's a subsect of the toxic Star Wars fandom with this show that don't like, Reva for some reason, and little Leia having a role for some reason. All that kind of stuff is a different sect, but there is definitely a sector of Star Wars fans with this show that are just cameo heavy, that only wanted the show they wanted in their own minds. And it was a really nice breakdown of if you just watch the show for what it is, yeah, there might be critiques on storytelling. That's valid, that you can have. But like we've said from Utini from day one, managing expectations is not only about, is this going to be good or not? It's making sure that you don't write a personally tailored show within your own mind, and then when that doesn't happen on screen, you feel let down by a project. And that seems to be a lot of the bad faith arguments. So that was the huge one this week.
They got really big this week, and there was one more. It was a long thread of somebody, and they talked about kind of the way that Star Wars fandom has sort of evolved over the years. And there was one particular tweet in there that really stood out to me, in which she said something like
Star Wars Antos. It was Heather Antos. That's what it was. Charles,
Antos. You know what? It. I'm gonna find it then.
I have it right here, actually.
Oh, dude, read that one.
Charles, the one that I shared with you guys was reason number 4, or point number 4, and there was a whole bunch of them. But it says fans are no longer consuming media to enjoy it; they're watching to have a reactionary opinion of good or bad. Curiosity and escapism, or even enjoyment, don't seem to be a part of some people's viewing experience anymore, and that's sad.
Yeah. That was it. Yeah, that seriously spoke to me. And that is largely, that's kind of similar in vein to, kind of why we changed the way we do book reviews at Utini, is that same thought is it was hurting my own personal experience reading books just to determine if I liked them or not. And I was too getting hung up on that. So I don't know, everybody's gotta get that out of their language. I feel like a little bit I had multiple people ask me this past weekend, what do you think about the Kenobi show? Do you like the Kenobi show? I'm like, that's not the right question, I think, is I don't know. Don't finish every episode with, did I like this or I didn't like it? That's where I'm at. And, but this particular show, there were a couple small things that sort of took me out of the episode a little bit, which I'm happy to talk about, which is the first time this has happened. It took 4 episodes for that to happen. So that's pretty damn good. So I'm still having an absolute blast. I'm absolutely jacked for this week, especially.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's not the question we want to ask. Wes, did you like this?
I hated this episode, guys. I loved it. It was a great episode.
Oh my!
I mean, there was a couple instances we can talk about that kind of made me think. It was quintessential Star Wars. There's some things that are they've been put in Star Wars for years and years and years and years, and it just like came back up again, much like the tracker. But like there's some other things they put in there that kind of deepened my interest in this episode, where I went back and researched some stuff and got back into some of the animation and some of the old Clone Wars. So it helped me go back in time, if you will, to a better age when Obi-Wan had armor. So
I love that, dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat, man. This really made me think fondly back on those moments, not in the way of like direct flashbacks, which I'll admit, I went into this episode on Wednesday morning, similarly to a lot of us. I got up early and I watched it, and I was like, this is gonna be the Clone Wars flashback episode, or we're gonna meet Quinlan Vos on Jabeam. Like, this was the first time I actually went in with a couple expectations. And then when they left Jabeam so quickly, I was like, oh wait, where was my, and then I had to stop myself because I was like, hold on, this is not how you watch content. It's not assuming what's going to happen and then wondering why they didn't do your predetermined path. And the second I let that go, my gosh, I had such a good time. It was a really fun episode. Seeing Fortress Inquisitorius in all its horror was huge. And I think for my part, the Reva Leia scenes were my favorite in this episode. I thought that the dynamic with Moses Ingram and Vivian Blair, who just continues to be a freaking movie star at 8 years old, like their kind of dialogue exchanges and the strength back and forth between the two of them was some of my favorite stuff. And also, of course, like Charles said, watching Obi-Wan really get to the point where he's opening up not only to his own past trauma, but to the literal Force itself, and finding his power again, and like realizing that in order to save Leia, he's got to become General Kenobi, if you will, was just a total blast. I like you said, Corey, I think one moment where I got taken out, purely on a technical thing, which I know we'll chat about in a little later, but still really loving this show. I think, again, for my money, I'll say this at the top, this is still probably the best Star Wars show we've gotten for me. I think that just quality across the board, I'm enjoying it at least the most, and I think it's a great time. But before we get into some of like the more technical stuff, I want to talk a little conceptual with you guys to start, because we saw the path this episode. We'd heard about it, and now we found the base of operations, and this is something that's different than the rebellion, if you will. This is purely for funneling Jedi kids to safety, and we kind of saw that operation. So what do you guys think now of the path as a concept, and practically now that we've actually seen what it is?
I think it's super interesting to see pre-rebellion, pre-resistance, and you have this group of do-gooders that are like, I see that what is going on here. I'm not like a shill to the Empire, and we need to do something about this. You need to not be silent. You need to, go about forming a group of like-minded people, and we'll see if we can help these people, because I'm sure that they saw the first thing with actions that they saw from the Empire was somebody going and snatching some child from their parents. And they were like, what the hell is this? This can't be right. And then you got a whole mass of people who are like, that's right. Get those dirty Jedi, So they form something. We're in the beginning of the formation of the rebellion, which is super cool to see, because we only saw there's the rebellion, there's the Empire. Where did the rebellion start? How did it start? Kind of thing.
Yeah, and I love that because a lot of that stuff, especially with Tala saying like, I joined up, but then I realized what it was, and then I worked within it, reminded me a little bit of like a Thane Kyrell kind of thing from Lost Stars, right? It's like the whole, I thought this was just going to be what I had to do, and then I saw it was wrong. And whereas Thane obviously took a little bit of a different route away from the Empire, seeing a lot of them work within it to create this path and realize that I need to help out to kind of even absolve myself a little bit, I thought was really powerful. And especially when we hear what's his name, Roken, talk about like his wife, and I'm like, oh, these all will have personal stakes and things like that. Corey, Charles, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, like, to the concept in general, to like shuttle Jedi to, to safety. I'm very curious if this is it. If we're going to get anything else about this. Like this is very easy to expand upon. I mean, it's cool. We got some faces with names. Like we really blew through those scenes. Like, so, I don't remember anybody's names. I'm going to have to go back and watch it again to catch all that. But it looks like it's a decent size operations. Do what?
Ice Cube's son. That's all you need
Ice
to
Who
know.
that was?
Cube's son.
That's
Yep.
his in-universe name as well.
All right.
Little Ice Cube. Yeah. Yeah. I hope we in Jedi Survivor in the game. That's where I think we're going.
It's a nice way to bring in Jedi, that we're familiar with that makes sense. That's not like shoehorning them into a thing like that. It makes sense in universe, which is nice. And I think the other thing that's nice about it is while people who would join the rebellion would probably be the same kind of people that would be working, on these paths, they are distinct things. Like the goal of the path is not to overthrow the Empire. The goal of the path is to protect these force sensitive beings, understanding that there's an inherent benefit to having these people, out in the galaxy, whether they're Jedi or not, so that's really interesting. I think they're going to go pretty far with that idea.
Yeah. And
I also found it really cool that they're like non-combatant, right? Like they're like not military.
We're not soldiers is their whole thing.
Which is interesting. And we got to see that play out completely with Wade at the end of the episode, right? Like they're truly not. I mean, they're always, you see that a lot in Star Wars. I feel like people are like, yeah, we're not soldiers, we're not combatants, and then they have to go and be super competent soldiers and combatants. But we didn't really see that, right? I mean, they were kind of they didn't really do a great job, and it obviously cost Wade his life. So
when Tala said, "Well, you're soldiers now," that kind of took me back. Well, took me forward. When K2SO was like, you're a rebel now.
Yep. Yeah, it is that kind of moment. And I think why the path especially hits harder for me emotionally, I think already than maybe like just the beginnings of the rebellion. Like you're saying, the rebellion knows they're signing up to be soldiers, things like that. But the path, it reminded me of a lot of these smaller organizations in places that like help refugees out of countries. I mean, like how many places have we heard that are helping like Ukrainians out of the country in the last few months? Like it's that same thing. Like we're just getting you and your children to another place, and you have to trust that person has your best interest in heart. Like you hear about like North Korean defectors, like all these countries in our actual world have these underground organizations that are like, you come to us. Some of them are like Haja Estri that are like, if you pay me money, I will get you out. Whereas others are like, we're a humanitarian organization, we will get you out. But there's such inherent risk with all of that, because if any of them get found, then obviously there's dire consequences. And I think having Wade, a character that is, yes, introduced very quickly, is like, maybe he would have been Will Lark in like 10 years, if he would have had time.
Yeah. Oh,
but
good job.
He's like, Elvis Squadron, happy anniversary. It's like 3 years old. In order to have Wade come in so kind of casually and then immediately be lost is like, okay, no, even if you're a humanitarian smuggling organization, the Empire will destroy you. And I like Andrea's comment. Would love to see comics about it. I think this could make a good comic. Yeah, just have them kind of pop up here and there would be pretty cool. So I love seeing them on Jabeam. I love the transitory nature of it. But then, of course, we get to the main set piece, the giant Lego set itself. I don't know if we have a Lego set of it yet, but we will. Fortress Inquisitorius of Jedi Fallen Order and comic book fame, rendered in live action fully. This was wild, and I loved, this scene you pull up, Wes, of them like hearing about it. It's in the Mustafar system. Oh, that's Vader's system. Like having the weight of this structure. Like, what'd you guys think about the execution of Fortress Inquisitorius? Do you think that it lived up to what it had to be in order to like house these horribly deadly Inquisitors?
I think so for sure. I think I will say that like this is a really classic Star Wars trope story, right? Like the good guys, they go to a base and they break somebody out or they steal something, whatever, and but the entire plot involving the Fortress Inquisitorius was kind of complex and like had interesting stuff happen. Like there was the whole thing with the water and being underwater and being underground and how Obi-Wan got into it. Like it was just very creative. It wasn't just land the shuttle, hide past, the Assassin's Creed style, the guards, like I'll hide past them walking around in the hangar and then sneak in a door. Like, they very well could have done that, but they didn't. They made it really creative with going underwater and then, having to deal with underwater being part of the base. We've never seen anything like that done before.
And the mullet just flowing in the water as he swam. It was pretty majestic.
It's an iceberg.
It was cool to see Obi-Wan in the water like that because I was hardcore flashing back to him and Qui-Gon swimming, to the underwater city.
With the breath, I know.
Yeah,
he even has the thing again too. The
breathalyzer, or no, not the breathalyzer.
The breath. I wonder what he's blowing that breathalyzer.
You can see his hilt. He has his
General Kenobi would blow straight zeros, but old Ben Kenobi, that old hermit, I don't know about him.
That's a name I haven't heard in many years. I like the water entrance of it. I will say though, so him going in, I love the mechanics of it. I love Tala being the person on the inside. I loved her just like. It's like Sky Talker said about Celebration. Walk with confidence, you can get in most doors. Yeah. Like, I loved her just being like, I am just going to own this and go through. And then...
That was a great scene. Her little spat with the guard was fantastic.
Security man?
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, I'm here with classified. Do you know what classified means? It's just like the Empire is constantly brought down by like middle management bureaucracy. In every book, everything, like everyone's so afraid of getting fired that you can just kind of get away with anything.
I know.
And
you noticed his insignia.
Chokehold. Yeah, he's got three.
He's got three little blue ones. I mean, who are you?
He's a baby. He's a child.
You got three little blue ones. Oh man, that's funny, dude.
Oh, little baby blue boy.
Nobody even within the Empire knows what they're called. There's.
Oh, I know. All right, so I have to bring up my only criticism of the episode. My only real criticism.
Yeah, hit
this is the only thing that has taken me out of the Kenobi show literally so far at all. Where I was literally I slapped my head. Like, this is so stupid. Like, what is her name again? Tala, right?
Tala.
Yeah, Tala. Yeah, when Tala goes in right after she talks to this guy and he lets him in the door, she goes and sits at a console like with a whole bunch of people around her and just starts loudly talking into a walkie-talkie. Like not even like whispering or anything. Like everybody can hear everything that she's saying. Look how close she is, all these people.
She whispered a bit, but I will admit, it's like, listen, I've been really in the zone at work and not paying attention. Maybe everyone has AirPods. Like I didn't see the
maybe
other guys.
So. I mean, I didn't see anybody with headphones on or anything. And then immediately after loudly talking, and when she gets confronted, she like kills the guy or knocks him unconscious or what, chokes him out like literally 5 feet from the console. Like with the people, you can see her dragging around. It's just, you can see his body through the cracks and they're like right next to that totally took me out. I thought it was
you know what?
I thought it was so stupid.
I get it.
I figured out there's subtext in the second watch if you read it. The guy next to her, you can tell he's actually been asked to stay late every day that week. And he's like really fuming about it. So when she starts choking him out, he's like, not today. He knows he's going to be able to punch out.
She just knew this guy wasn't going to get up for a cup of coffee so he could stay up for that extra shift, right? Yeah. He's just going to be glued to his console and not move.
Justin, listen, I don't get paid enough. And you work a corporate job, you're like, you know what? Nope.
Yeah, I get it. It was funny, man. It was funny.
I'm with you, though. Yeah, it was like, the framing of it was like, okay, you could probably see, which is why I'm glad, like, later on when she gets called out and revealed, she's like, all right, I'm just going to start shooting these guys. Like, I'm not going to mess around with this anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, but totally legit. It was an interesting framing of that. It really shows me, too, how much of Inquisitorius is really just run on fear, because there's, like, a decent amount of security cameras and things, but for the most part, it does seem like everyone just does their job because, if you don't, you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
What kind of job is that?
Well, but also, what are those folks doing? Because at least prior to this episode, it was more so my impression that like Fortress Inquisitorius was like for the Inquisitors more so to hang out at and like do their stuff. But there was a ton of just Imperial officers around and all these folks. So I guess it's less of a secret than I thought it was.
Yeah,
the Inquisitors.
It seems like they're like the high-level ranking military, and like all the grunts are the folks that are like, anytime an Inquisitor has a mission or sends something out, they're like taking care, they're refueling ships, they're sending our
Paperwork.
reinforcements. They're like the grunts.
They could also maybe be involved in the like whatever the Imperial process is for discovering and capturing Jedi, right? Like,
I mean,
like that is probably a whole thing.
Walked in on 10-year-old Leia being strapped into a thing with needles in her face and was like, ma'am, sorry, there's a note. Like, they know what's going on.
That's a Thursday
Ma'am?
at the Fortress.
Ma'am, sorry, you have a phone call. I know you want to torture this child. I completely get it. That's fine. You really just need to come up. Like, that was how
This
little
is
she
a
was
Wendy's.
fazed by that. So I also, speaking of that, let's talk about the basement, right? Because that was a big thing too. We heard that, okay, Inquisitorius, they had these battle plans and they saw there was a lot of it submerged. Like, a lot of it, we don't know what happens in the lower levels. And then Obi-Wan goes in and we see these, like, yellow, like, shielded areas that seem to just be holding kind of these bodies in stasis. Again, including, as I said in the recap, Terrace Nube, which y'all really affected me way more than I thought. I did not know how attached I was to Sinube. But I also saw this tweet thread about kind of how he's been involved in quite a lot of stuff as far as like Clone Wars goes. He's in the High Republic. Like, he was with Ahsoka. Like, he was one of those mentor guys. What do you guys think about that tomb scene? And are these literally just like preserved bodies of Jedi they've killed? Like, that's dark.
It's you know, they land on the dinosaur, right, and then the sweat, it like slicks off their back, and then they get stuck in tree sap, and that's what this is, right? Like in Jurassic Park,
right? It's amber. Well, that makes sense.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. This was creepy and gross. I loved it. And Charles, didn't you point out that you watched it with subtitles and some troopers were like. I don't like this place. It gives me the creeps or something.
It was when Obi-Wan's communicator goes off and they hear it and they start looking for him in the hall. It was then one of them goes like, "This place gives me the creeps," and the other guy's like, "Yeah, I hope we're not assigned here for long." But like, you can't really hear it without.
Yeah, I didn't hear that at all. He pointed that out.
Yeah.
That's really funny. But yeah, this was super creepy. What the hell are they doing with these bodies?
It's
Stephanie
like
in the
trophies.
chat. Trophy case. It's a tomb and a trophy case. That is sick, and I think that's true.
Dude, I bet there's a spot somewhere down there with a plaque that says Obi-Wan Kenobi that's just still empty.
This is where I'd put my Obi-Wan Kenobi if I had one.
Yeah, I thought it was really disturbing, especially they showed the young Padawan too, like towards the end there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I saw
eyes are open.
Yeah, it was something a little less disturbing for me to see like Sinube, but to see a human child in here, I was like, what the hell is this?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. It's dark.
Wow,
and
only if
creepy.
it's a human child, Corey. That's gonna mess it up.
That's right.
That's
Ow.
You heard it here first. Corey doesn't like aliens.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, that's a great question. Like, are they dead, or can they unfreeze them as far as Palpatine's like cloning stuff? Is he testing? I mean, that's a deep well, but Wes, like you mentioned that a lot of the stuff here really led you down to a lot of like researching like Clone Wars stuff, like other Jedi stuff. Like, what do you think about the further implications of what all these Jedi here kind of mean, and how did that make you feel retroactively about all these people we saw like in the Clone Wars?
Well, so yeah, I did a little bit of digging, and I remember this part of this episode. It's in Rebels in season 1. And so Kanan feels that he doesn't have the skills to be able to train Ezra. So he looks for Master Luminara. He hears a rumor that she's still alive, and so they go looking for her, and he feels her in the Force, and they're trying to find. And they go to, forgot exactly what like prison planet it was. But they went to this place where the Grand Inquisitor was, and they find Luminara, but it's not really Luminara. She's encased in a tomb, and so one of the big concepts, one of the big things that I've heard through the website, through things on Twitter, is this is a way of keeping a Force essence, or keeping their bodies intact and preserved, and they still give off like their Force ability, like a little bit of Force. They still give off like their own characteristic of like if somebody feels that they're looking for Terrace Nube, then they can use part of him and stick him somewhere, and have them go towards Terra Sinube, and they use like his Force essence, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's how they can capture him. So they're using these old Jedi Masters and old Jet Force. I think the reason they also have the child there is that could have been somebody's Padawan. And if a Jedi is still alive, Jedi are being Jedi. They're good.
point.
They're gonna go looking for their Padawan.
Oh dang!
That's a
So you're
clever
telling
point.
me that it's possible that they bring these people out of this stasis, like in their pod, set them up on a planet, wait for the people to sense them, and then the Jedi hunt themselves by outing them to rescue them, and then that's how they get more of them.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
horrifying,
Yes,
and
isn't
I
it
think you're
weird?
so right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we got.
That
So
was a
we
good
did
pull.
get
That was a
Terra
good pull with
Sinube.
Luminara.
Yeah.
And I gotta do a bad thing, which you're not supposed to do on here, but I'm gonna do it anyways. If you look over here to the right here, who does that look like? Right there to the
Coleman
right.
Kaj?
Is that a Coleman Kaj guy right there?
It looks just
Holy
like him. Yeah.
Crap, dude.
You know.
Look how many
Yeah.
shots
Just like
there
him.
are, though. There's a lot more than who
All
we
on the
saw.
top here? Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Look at those people. I don't know.
I did
There's
like
a
how
lot
they're
of them
like,
here.
if it's Coleman Kaj and Terra Sinube are the two that are chosen, they're like, all right, we have to do something. Who are we pretty damn sure we're not using in another story? Coleman
Yeah,
Kaj?
exactly.
Sure,
I know.
all right, I
Coleman Kaj, dude?
I know.
At
They
work?
They do really they do really have to be careful with these cameos like this.
Yeah,
like no
I agree.
kidding. Just because of
But
that
that's why it's
reason.
fine to not recognize. Like, it's.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a rant about stuff you see on Twitter, but saw a bunch of people being like, "These are inconsequential folks. Like, what's the point of doing it?" It's like there is a point.
So
Like,
what?
it's
so
not
what? What
just
do you mean
about
it's
cameos,
not every,
like-
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's a big
It was
galaxy, man.
impactful for Obi-Wan. You have to think about in universe. That was incredibly impactful for Obi-Wan to see people. He likely knew, whether we know them or not, that we're in this state.
Yeah,
Right.
and the show is called Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
Like we get everything that happens is in service to the character of Obi-Wan. Like you're saying, Charles, and even if he didn't know them, Obi-Wan Kenobi is looking at a child that he did not save because in his mind, again, he is still responsible for not killing Anakin now and letting Vader go, not knowing Palpatine was around. So every death that he sees for Jedi, he bears weight. And I think that seeing that full tomb was so huge. And I think for me, it really helped the story because he's like, okay, I couldn't save any of them. There's no way I'm not saving Leia Organa. Like, I am finding her immediately. And I loved him getting the distraction, being like, I am on my way immediately. But of course, before we get Leia and Obi-Wan, I want to backtrack just slightly in the episode to the Reva and Leia scenes. I already said, obviously, how much I loved them. What did you guys think about these two playing off each other? Because these are two characters I did not think were going to meet. And I thought it was fascinating they put them together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talking about like managing expectations and things you want, all that kind of stuff we were talking about earlier, Eric. Like, I was a little bummed that we didn't get like Reva's story this episode. I feel like this very well could have been the Reva episode. Like in a lot of ways, like the content of the episode doesn't feel like it has really progressed the plot forward, like really at all. Like we're kind of
she's
right
like,
back where we were.
she had a droid. We know that everything was taken from her. Like we get little hints.
They're dropping
exactly.
registers.
Exactly. Yeah. Like this. It would have been. You know, I'm just gonna assume that they're saving it for some other situation. But I did leave the episode like, man, they should have told us all that. But there was a lot of clues in there, like you said, and maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Is we're supposed to like kind of follow those clues a little bit. And like, yeah, she said that she had a droid that was taken away from her. That was really interesting. She also really looked like she didn't want to torture Leia. Like.
Yeah,
there were levels to her performance.
Yeah. Oh my God, the moment where she was like, when Leia was like, "Can I call my father?" and she was like, "This kid, I'm gonna hit it." I was like, "Oh my God, you were like she seemed to have her guard down a bit more."
She was definitely unhinged in regards to like being angry and like she wanted to hurt her, but then like when she actually was getting ready to pull the trigger, she hesitated. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
she did.
So I don't know. That's very interesting. Like that they're showing us those types of details. So
yeah, I saw this this thread or maybe it was a TikTok. I don't know. Someone on the internet made a point that the episode structure is kind of following the saga structure as of right now, with episode 1 being like the call to action and things like that. Episode 2 has Dayu, which is very much like the Coruscant chase. Episode 3 has Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting again, and episode 4 has Ben going into an Imperial structure to get Leia. And it was like, it's kind of cool watching all those things kind of happen bit by bit by bit by bit, and it makes me wonder, like, Leia obviously kind of comes into her own, withstands Imperial torture, like all these things that happen in A New Hope, and I wonder if the next 2 episodes with Leia and Obi-Wan both are going to follow kind of like the Luke and Leia respective trajectories in episodes 5 and 6. And like, it might be a coincidence, totally might be, but as she was kind of, as the needles were coming in, when Charlie and I were watching it the second time, she was like, oh, this is how Leia withstood Imperial torture in the 4th one, because she's already been in this situation as a kid, and that's why she wasn't so freaked out about it. And I like that kind of foundation laying.
Except in that time, it's mobile. You have a floating torture thing.
Back in my day, you couldn't have a torture droid. You needed a torture chair.
And I'll again echo just how fantastic the little girl actress is. I mean, she's like, she is Leia.
I love her.
Yes, she's so good. It's so good. And like, she's just nailed the sassiness, but also the weirdly, like, the strength and the
Is
tenacity.
this a staring contest?
Yes, like, she's kind of a badass. She's like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, which, I mean, so many so many levels of emotion with
Darth
Leia. Yo, that lighting's wild. But yeah, I mean, you get her like, tell me how Obi-Wan died. And at that moment, if she thinks that she's alone and Obi-Wan's dead, she still comes up with like the plan to try to contact Bail and try to like outwit him. She's constantly hyping up Obi-Wan. She tells him about the window. Like, she's so on top of so many things. And I think Reva not only gets the Force strength, obviously, when she's trying to infiltrate her mind, but it's kind of like a game recognizes game kind of thing, where she's talking to Leia. She's like, all right, I get you. I see where this is coming from. So I really liked them. But then, of course, let's talk about the man himself. We talked about a lot of parts of the episode, a lot of the areas, a lot of the other characters. Obi-Wan in this scene gets to be the most, I would argue, General Obi-Wan that we've seen thus far. He gets to be really kind of back in action with the saber. We're bouncing back shots. We're actually doing some kills if we have to. We're holding things with the Force. Like, we're doing a lot of things that our prequel Obi-Wan is doing. Where do you guys think Obi-Wan is on that journey right now? Like this action sequence I particularly loved. Like, what percentage of his full power is he at
Oh yeah, it's low. That's what I appreciate about it. Like, he's like the muscle memory is there. That was badass. I loved it. The muscle. I know. I was so glad. The muscle memory is clearly there, but he's also like not 100%. It's obvious. Like, this is not a Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith that we saw. Like, I love that they were able to get that portrayal in there, because it would have been easy to just be like, all right, let's choreograph some really cool, badass fight scenes. But no, it's like they added this extra layer of like, remember, it's been 10 years and you're not very good. They got that in there, and it seems it's pretty apparent.
Yeah, and he closed himself off from the Force. I mean, from when they're flying over to the fortress, and he's just trying to force pull that little thing on the counter. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is the guy that could use, that was more one with the Force than anyone other than, like, I don't know, Mason Yoda, like at a certain point, and he just could barely pull something. And then by the end, we get him holding this glass together.
Yeah,
and I mean, shout out to the sound design and Natalie Holt again, killing it with the score throughout. Like, hearing the Force in the music kind of come back to Obi-Wan as well, I thought was really well done. Because, I mean, obviously, the sound design of using the Force is so big, because it's just an actor putting their hand out and wiggling their fingers. Like, you got to have a little bit of oomph. And I thought she did really well with that.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm glad you brought up him not being able to move that little widget, whatever it was, the thingy-mabob, when they were flying over the fortress, and then juxtaposing that in the same episode with what he was able to do later on, because it speaks towards like the emotional weight of this on Obi-Wan, because there were no stakes to him moving that little thing in the ship, right? But when that desperation comes in, when it's like, no, things are like crumbling around me. Like, if we don't pull this out, we are not going to get Leia. And he was able to reach within himself and do something that there are plenty of Jedi, I'm sure, who could not have even done this, even, back in the glory day of the Jedi at their strongest. I also want to say that this, I think, looks incredible. And for
Yes.
as
I
many
thought so
little
too.
moments that, oh, maybe this didn't look as good as it would have in a movie, whatever. When he
incredible.
makes it, that looks so good. And I love the little moments too. Like when he gets out of this hallway, if we make it that far and you see the troopers floating inside on the other side of the glass, like little moments like that are just so good. Like just top notch Star Wars on any size screen. I don't care what
Agreed.
you
Yeah.
say.
This reminds me of to plug our friends over at the Cosmic Force. They talk a lot about the comic The Rise of Kylo Ren. Yeah, this shot is creepy because you also see Obi-Wan never wants to kill people. And
There's
you're
some
like, this is what we
fish
gotta
that go
do.
by too. I'm serious.
Well done, ILM. We love all of you.
There's
I
a
know you
bigger
know
one
that.
out there somewhere. Yeah. Always is.
I want to call out The Rise of Kylo Ren comic by Charles Soule and Will Sliney, because within that comic, Luke Skywalker, Master Luke Skywalker at that point, is talking to some Padawans about Ben Solo, and they're like, he can just access the Force so quickly, like, why is he so powerful? And Luke has this great little monologue about how anyone can access the Force. It's just opening a door, and Ben's door is just open a little bigger to start. You just have to work a little harder. And I think that visualization of closing the door on the Force is so impactful for me with Obi-Wan, because for 10 years, he's just held that door completely shut because he doesn't want to be sensed. He doesn't want to be found out. He's just doing that. And after, if you don't open a door for 10 years, that thing's going to jam. It's going to fight you, And I think throughout these episodes, we've seen him trying to gently nudge it if he can. But like you said, Charles, when he sees that Leia is in trouble and Tala is in trouble and they're not going to make it, he gives it a little more of a forceful tug to open himself up to the Force more fully. And my hope is that by the end of this series, that door is going to be almost fully open, and he's going to be opening himself up fully, and he's going to find a better way to navigate around it. So instead of, not being a beacon, we're going to see Master Ben Kenobi kind of fully formed to the way we see him in the Twin Sons episode of Rebels, to bring Rebels up again, like Wes said. Like, that man has himself completely open to the Force. He just doesn't use it that often. And I think that's going to be the balance we eventually find with Obi-Wan by the end of this series.
Yeah, it's interesting to try to reframe how you go back and watch A New Hope based on what we've seen in the series. Because, I mean, at the first time that we watched it, of course, we think that's the first time they've seen each other since Mustafar. Now that we've seen all of this, it's like, yeah, Obi-Wan doesn't have this experience and then go back to Tatooine and do nothing to prepare for the future. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Everyone knows, including Vader, that he's out there and they're still actively looking for him. And he knows what happens if he's caught unaware because he's gone through it in this series. So it makes perfect sense that this just prepares him for what eventually comes down the road.
Yeah. And I think that, like you say, one of our favorite things to do at Utini is, whether it's a book, whether it's a show, we always love reflecting on how it retroactively changes content. I mean, I think our go-to example lately has been Queen's Peril with Phantom Menace, like completely just recontextualizes. But I think that this show, like we kept talking, I think last week. Oh yeah, last week we've only done one other show of this. Last week we talked about how this feels like Revenge of the Sith as far as the vibe goes and the music and the action. But I think you're right. It will far more affect the viewing of A New Hope. I am holding off. About a rewatch. I know we had some team members that have watched A New Hope since this came out. I am holding off until the end of it because I really think after those full 6 episodes, I'm going to want to watch episode 4 and really realize, like, I'm here with Ben Kenobi, like things like that are really going to jump out in a really beautiful way. And I think I'm going to see, I really think it's going to be real easy to see Vivian Lee Blair's eyes in Carrie Fisher in that performance. And it's going to just really add another level of love, if that's even possible, to Leia from the beginning.
Yeah. I think that's really what we're trying to get to, is like we're trying to cross this bridge between 3 and 4, which is a very dramatic jump just from movie making. Just simply because the original Star Wars is so old and it took a long time to, get to Revenge of the Sith, right? And I also, heard we had some folks. I remember seeing some people in our Slack talking about how the combat still feels like a little clunky or something. You know what I mean? Like have you seen some of that criticism about like the lightsaber stuff?
I've seen it around.
I've seen some of that too, and I would spin that, and I don't really see it as a criticism or a complaint. Really, it's really more like I feel like we're bridging the gap between episode 3 and 4, right? Because the famous kind of goofy lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Vader on the Death Star, right? It's kind of it's not like lightsabers were in Revenge of the Sith. It is clunky, right? So like
it's heavier,
it feels
has more weight. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like some of that is coming through, and we've seen like lightsaber combat and stuff in this show. So I really appreciate it. I think it's fun, and I think it's fun to sort of reimagine the new like through the old eyes in a way. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the creativity and the stories that they have to tell between now and episode 4 and answer all the questions that they know they're going to get of, why did Obi-Wan just arrive on Tatooine and not train? Like, well, he was training, kind of thing. Like all that connective tissue between now or episode 3 and episode 4, they're kind of answering questions that I'm sure that they had a round table or a whiteboard that came up. It's like, let's try to answer all these questions that we know they're going to come up in episode 4 because of all the stuff that already came out 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to fill in gaps too. I think that's much harder to do than tell an original story.
That's really creative the way those writers can do that, though. It's super cool.
You know what we forget too? Like, where is Obi-Wan originally taking Luke to in A New Hope? He's going to Alderaan to reunite him with Leia. Like, he knows that is the thing to do. And we always forget that because obviously Alderaan's not there, and then the whole thing happens. But like, his first place to go is back to Bail, back to Leia, back to like, okay, let's make the Skywalker twins, let's fix the galaxy.
Yeah.
And I think having the guy that starts this series from like, I can't help, you have the wrong guy, I can't be who you want me to be, to this episode where he's talking to the Rokin and the folks in the path being like, she's 10 years old. This is your problem. Like, he's already completely turned into like, nope, we all got to be together. And I think having that already evolve here makes so much sense now to find Ben, who is ready at the drop of a hat to be like, all right, today's the day. We're going to Alderaan. Let's get Leia. Let's do it. I like that this is now bridging that gap already. So we see now he can more meditatively wait for the next 10 years as opposed to kind of being afraid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally agree with all that.
Yeah.
The other small little bit of nostalgia that was really interesting was the return of the snowspeeders at the end of the episode.
Yeah. T-47s.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. What did you guys think about that?
They could have looked slightly better. I think when they came in, that's the only piece of visualization that I was like, oh, okay. I like you said, Corey, I've had zero visual complaints throughout.
Me too.
And it took to the last 30 seconds of this episode where I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
But again,
there were some shots involving, we were obviously using the volume, it looked like there were some shots of Reva up against a really big background. Then it showed the speeder that something looked a little off.
Yeah, perspective was a bit off, but
something was weird about it, and I can get behind that. But I'm not a huge fan of being really nitpicky about CGI personally.
No.
This looks fine. I mean, this shot looks fine, I think.
And I love how they were like, oh, these are used for they're used for something. I forgot what they said.
For hauling waste.
For hauling waste. Like they're poop ships. You got a poop ship. And they're like, all right, we can fit you in here.
You heard it here first.
That's funny, man.
And we forget that before Hoth, if you read the books, the snow speeders were like retrofitted with additional coverings to make them snow speeders. Like, T-47 was not originally made for a snowy climate.
Oh, that's in the film. That's in Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. They say we're still trying to adapt them to the cold. It's a whole dialogue piece. This is badass. So look at this shot.
Yeah, I mean, this is awesome.
They did this for a TV show.
I know. I also joked with you guys that I find it so hilarious that every single time we go to any sort of Imperial hangar, there are so many people walking around. What are they doing? Where are they going? How are so many people walking around? It cracks me up every single time. It's so
if you've
funny.
ever been at a job and you're like, I don't clock out for 3 hours, I've finished everything I got to do, I'm just going to walk back and forth to a couple, because if you look busy, you do not get another job.
Look how many people are walking in this hangar. Where the hell are they going? It's so funny to me.
This is great.
Speaking of little things that are actually just funny, Obi-Wan with Leia in the giant Imperial coat walking out.
I know.
The Three Stooges? The Three Stooges
yeah,
shit? That's what it is.
Slapstick in a way. But at the same time,
trying to get into an R-rated movie.
Yes, but like you can make it make sense. You know, maybe he's doing something with the Force. Who knows? I mean, but at the same time,
who's looking at him? You know,
exactly. Who's looking at them? But like, if you really want to like just keep going down rabbit holes, you know, why weren't his shoes squishing after he got out of the water walking down the hall? I mean, like, who cares?
I know exactly.
Just further the story. Like, it's still absolutely incredible that we are getting this story at all. I'm just I feel again, we've already given too much breath to the people that are just blowing hot air on Twitter, but like I'm so thankful that we're getting this. That's like that's how I feel every time I fire up an episode. I'm so thankful I even get to watch this. And I just feel like that's a good way to approach it, because I've done nothing but enjoy the show.
You know what that reminds me of, Charles?
Totally
It's a story from behind the scenes of A New Hope. It's Mark Hamill tells the story where they're in the trash compactor, you know, and Luke, his hair's all slicked back. And then eventually when they're running to the Falcon, it's completely dry and it's fine, right? And Mark Hamill apparently on set brought up, oh, shouldn't my hair be like wet and stuff? And Harrison Ford looked at him and he was like, it's not that kind of movie, kid. It was like, you know, it's like if people are worrying about your hair being wet, we're sunk. Like the movie's already gone.
I know. Like it's. I tell people all the time that plot holes are part of Star Wars storytelling. Like that is it's almost like an integral part. Like you cannot ask too many questions about things because it all falls apart immediately if you do.
Yes.
Like, why is this one ship able to take on this whole other giant ship? Because it friggin' is. Well, shut the hell up about it, right? Because it happened on screen. That's why. I also wanted to point this out really fast too, before you take the shot off, Wes. He's wearing the same type of officer jacket that what's his name had on from that Beckett had on from Solo. Remember the
longer one,
the long trench coat? I thought that was a great costuming choice because that is absolutely the exact same jacket that he had on.
And another thing, the Empire is like the New York Yankees. All of the officers that are male have shaved faces, if not maybe a mustache, right? And then they have this bearded officer walk through in his Three Stooges outfit. Shout out to Kyle for pointing that out. But so there's your plot hole. But you know, who cares? Shut up. They got
pull off a beard, he's super important. So they're not gonna say anything about whatever it is he's smuggling out his ship.
They got called out within seconds of them walking out. So it wasn't somebody was gonna eventually notice.
Well, Alan makes a great point, too. He says, I feel like the trench coat scene does a great job of showing how not focused on Obi-Wan they were. Because, like, fifth brother walking by, because he's only fixated on Reva.
Right.
This is his third sister. Like, he is so laser focused. Why in the world, if you're an Inquisitor, would you look at the captain walking by you when you're focused on, I'm going to put a lightsaber through my professional rival's chest, you know? Like that's I think one of the downfalls of the Empire. One of the biggest things we see in every single show is that they are so focused on their own desires, on their own things, that they are blind to things like, you know, like the trench run. Like it works because they're so focused on destruction that they're not thinking as much about defense. Like all these failures work because of, you know, the hubris of this fascist regime. And I think that it again, because in our world, the camera is focused on Obi-Wan. So, of course, we're like, he's right there. What do you mean? How can you not see him? But you were trying to find someone that you know what they're wearing at a baseball game? And if you're looking for them, how hard it is to find them?
That's such a good point.
You know? So, it's I think all that stuff works and is fun. Because, like you said, Reva goes, you know, traitor! Classic Star Wars line. And we get that nice little thing. And then at the end, when the speeders come in and the music ramps up and Obi-Wan's theme, which we now all know by heart because of Mr. John Williams, is bumping and there's blaster fire and they're running for the, like, I mean, it's freaking Star Wars, man. That is like quintessential Star Wars action sequence, running away from a fortress And then Vader immediately comes in and is like, "You failed me for the last time."
That was badass too, by the
Come
way.
on.
Vader's whole entrance was just fantastic.
And they added
the
purge
shaky
troopers
camera.
too.
Yes.
The purge troopers from Jedi Fallen Order are.
Yeah.
That's what the black stormtroopers
Oh wow!
are.
I didn't realize that at all. That's totally true.
Purge troopers, like I got these special stormtroopers that are ready to purge the galaxy of Jedi. It's nuts.
Yeah, Deborah Chow did say in interviews that she was like, Ewan, Obi-Wan himself. Ewan said in an interview, like, "Oh yeah, Deborah Chow is very meticulous. When something happens in a video game, we have to make sure it's the same in our show." And everyone's like, "Oh, there's a connection." I'm like, "Bro, that's it." Like, they probably looked at the game models for purge troopers to make sure they had the right ones. And Andrea, I completely agree. Vader felt so scary at the end because it literally felt like we get the Vader that, does some chokes here and some threats, but the way he was moving and the weight of his steps and the camera work was like, oh, he's going to kill her right now.
Oh, for sure. He was upset. He was a dad getting ready to ground his child. That's what that was.
Into the ground. Into the
We all have a childhood memory of our dad walking to our room the same way.
What did I tell you what happened?
I also really appreciate. Look at the shaky cam on this, dude. He's scary, dude. I also appreciate the fact that they put a lot of this underwater because it gives a lot of the shots that sort of green lighting overtone, which is really scary and dark.
It feels
because
claustrophobic.
Yeah, this is an ocean planet, right? This thing's like in the middle of an ocean. Like, can you imagine like Vader just walking into the scare room and like choking her in just like a beautiful scenic like ocean view, like out in this nice blue sky? Like, look at that, this green lighting. It makes it evil and scary and dark. And yeah, I thought for sure he was gonna kill her right here.
Every single planet in the Mustafar system just sucks, is what we've learned. Like, if wherever you go, it's like water's gonna kill you, fire's gonna kill you. Like, it's all gonna be bad. But of course, we end with, Reva reprogrammed Lola while they're chatting too. I gotta imagine she was just like tinkering, and I'm like, all right, well done. And made her essentially a pseudo probe droid.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta think that we got 2 episodes left, which is already crazy. It feels like so much has happened, obviously, already, but it's sad to think that we're already 2/3 of the way through. We got 2 episodes left in this. Again, we are managing expectations. We are not projecting what we're gonna need in order to be happy, blah, blah, blah. But for this next episode, guys, where do you think we're going? Are we actually bringing the full force of Vader, the Inquisitors, everyone to follow this droid? Like, is there a final showdown? Like, do we get Leia back to Alderaan? Like, there's kind of a couple. There's more than a couple loose ends we got to tie up before the end of this.
Yeah, there is.
Next 2 episodes.
I think we have to get at least 2 things I'm thinking of. I think we got to get Reva's story somehow. I still think she was a Padawan at the Jedi Temple in Order 66.
Agreed.
I still think that's happening. And we got to get more Hayden. We haven't seen enough of Hayden without a helmet on, right? So I think we have to see more of that in some way. Surely we're the only shot of Hayden we're going to get was that 1 split second like vision thing. Surely we're going to get more than that. I think so. So those are the 2 things that I'll be looking for, I think, in the next 2 episodes, even if they only take like 3 minutes or something.
I like that. I'm gonna steal one from Charles and West. I know you're gonna say it. Qui-Gon meditation. I think we're getting Liam Neeson. I know. Yeah. Sorry, I had to. That's all I wanted.
I'm not convinced we're gonna get that, but I think it would be a great choice to add it in, but I'm not totally convinced that we're going to get it.
I think that might be like a last second thing. Like after the stories come to a close and he's back on Tatooine, like what if you just heard Qui-Gon say Obi-Wan and that's all we heard?
Or what if it ends and he goes like, huh, and then he opens his eyes and then we hear Liam Neeson say, hello there. And then it ends. Or wait, no, sorry guys. Force Ghost Liam Neeson comes up and he actually has a lightsaber that can actually work, and then it's Ghost Qui-Gon and real Obi-Wan fighting, and then Ghost Darth Bane comes and he fights with Vader. Sorry,
just let you go.
Stop that.
No, I had to stop.
One of the before we go on,
clicks.
This shot that they did with where they have Obi-Wan and Leia, and then
rooms.
They were just like, she's consoling, her new soldier, if you will, a part of the paths, and then there's Obi-Wan that's this is before Leia grabs his hand, but they were like both consoling each other. I thought that was a really good shot that they did in this video.
Yeah, it was the sort of layering of Leia taking Obi-Wan's hand, like on top of them talking about how this guy just got killed, like really does sort of highlight that Leia feels responsible even as a child, and she recognizes that, and like
that got me, man.
Yeah, dude, and she didn't say anything. Like she didn't say like this was all my fault. She didn't say anything. She just took Obi-Wan's hand. And that's all it took. That was really rich. I love that.
To have a 10-year-old, like I feel like all of us who have seen Obi-Wan's trauma for the last 10 years, like have such a hard time reckoning with it, and what could we possibly say, right? Like even if as adults, but watching Leia have the emotional maturity as a child to just say, I'm just going to take his hand and let him know he's not by himself. To let him know that, like, in that handhold, I saw, thank you for saving me. I saw, I know this is hard. And I saw this will soon be over. Like, all of it, just in that simple act of connection. And again, I know we're sounding like broken records, but I think it all goes to the performance of Vivian Leigh Blair. I think this kid is just so good at silent cues and acting. I'm just so blown away by her, especially in her scenes with Ewan. Yeah, I loved that moment. I'm really glad we hit that, because that ending it on that quieter moment too, I think was very important in a very loud episode.
One of the other things that I caught, which was really cool, was whenever Obi-Wan saves Leia from the torture chair, she immediately says, "I didn't tell them anything," and Obi-Wan was like, "I know." Like, he knew that she wasn't going to break, and they also threw in kind of the "I love you, I know" kind of deal that we saw in episode 5, right? I thought that was kind of a similarity. It might be a stretch. It might be a stretch. I don't know.
No, man. Why not? Why not?
Cool.
That's
cool.
God,
She's
that's
probably
beautiful.
so sick of hearing people say "I know" by the time Han says that. She's like, God, not
She's like, oh, cool, just like my surrogate dad. Anyway, that's weird. Wait, you're dying? No, hold on.
Yeah, I think one other thing that we haven't said that I think might happen, I won't be crushed if it doesn't, is I do think we see Vader and Obi-Wan at least speaking to each other again. I'm not saying they're going to cross blades again, but I think they will be talking to each other in some capacity. I think there's one more conversation, even if it's short, even if it's just a threat from Vader, whatever it is. I think we see that one more time before we see them again in A New Hope.
Yeah, I think a lot of
I
people
like it.
want that for sure.
I think it's a good possibility, and I think that if anything, a lot of the live action Star Wars we got, the last 2 episodes have always been big, right? There's always been like the lead up to every live season ends with a giant battle or a giant emotional climax, whatever it may be. I don't think Obi-Wan's going to be any different, and I don't think they've been saving budget at all on these. Is the thing, like they've really been looking really good. But I think that there's no reason they wouldn't be saving a lot of the big shots for last. And if you have a tracker leading you to a planet where Obi-Wan is with Princess Leia and Vader and his Inquisitors are massing an army to come there and finish it once and for all, like, and then we got to get to Tatooine. We still got to get him back on planet. So
yeah, Star Wars knows how to do a finale. They've shown that time and time again, even if they're earlier episodes in a season that you didn't love or you felt were weaker or filler or whatever word you want to use, they always do the finales really well. And if we look at how strong it's been up to this point, I really think these last 2 are probably gonna be the strongest episodes yet.
As long as it's longer than 38 minutes. That was whack.
Hold on. Andrea makes a great point that I forgot about, and this is kind of what I want to end on for this episode. She says, Ben will show Vader that sometimes he's still a superior Force user, still the master, because in A New Hope, remember, Vader says, last time we met, you were the master, which means that their last meeting here, Obi-Wan still has to prove he's the master in this series in order for that line to make sense. And again, I don't think they're breaking canon in that. I don't think that's going to be altered, but he has to somehow prove that he's still the master, and
I think that's true. Grand Inquisitor does have to come back still. I think the line actually is already kind of broken, because I'm pretty sure the line is, the last time we met, I was but the learner, and now I am the master, and that's already kind of not really true. So, but maybe.
So something fun.
Before we
I don't give a
leave,
shit about lines like that.
Yeah.
before we leave, Tala had said that she had found the paths and Obi-Wan is on Florum. So if you remember from Clone Wars, Florum is where Honda frickin' Onaka had him and his pirates. And here's like a. If you remember the episode, it's like some yellowish planet where we were all drinking and having a good time. And here's Obi-Wan and Anakin talking to Hondo. So this Florum is that pirate. I don't know if it's the whole planet's a pirate planet, but that's where they were. So that's kind of a little bit of
good
a
point.
Easter egg.
I forgot
that's
about
cool.
And then one more. That's a stretch. Could be. Who is the Jedi Master to the right of Obi-Wan as he's running? Who is that bald man?
Obi-Wan's right or the right of our screen?
On the right of our screen. Sorry, Obi-Wan's left.
I do not know.
It doesn't look like Mace Windu. Are they trying to?
Stop it.
Mace
Oh my God.
He has a hand.
That's
He has
right.
a
He
hand.
can't be in there. He's alive. Yeah.
He's
If
still on
he's here,
Coruscant.
who's running whatever we said, Mace's mechanic
Listen,
shop
man.
down in the lower level?
Somebody asked me what do I think about Mace Windu recently, and I realized that I'm officially in the camp that I want Mace Windu to come back.
Yes!
Straight up.
Too, but I was not.
It was such a meme originally, and I rolled my eyes at it. But now I legitimately want them to do something small and stupid with Mace Windu. Like I don't even care what it is. Just
Yep.
I mean, like Samuel L. Jackson obviously wants to do it, and
Yeah.
like, we're running out of time. Like for him to do it.
He does
if
not
he's going
say
to do
no
it.
to much, guys.
I know.
He's still
He
very
does a lot of
willing.
Capital One commercials. He's got time for something else.
What's in your wallet?
Yeah. Would absolutely love it. I mean, yeah, overall, this show is still just freaking awesome. I'm so excited for the next two. Like you're saying, we still have a third of it to go, which is a better way for me to like think of it than we only have 2 episodes left. We still have a full third of the whole story.
Yeah.
And they've really
30%.
proved to do a lot of great stuff. You know, these are gonna be our next 2 Wednesdays, and then we're on to a break until Andor. So any final thoughts other than Mace Windu definitely not being in Fortress Inquisitorius before we get out of here, guys? Charles, what about you? Any final thoughts on episode 4?
Show rocks. It keeps getting better every week for me, and I think it's going to continue to do that. And say whatever you want on Twitter. I love it.
Awesome. Corey?
Yeah, I'm having a blast with this. It's super fun. I think this was the first episode that I was really able to objectively find any flaws with. That like I was just like, yeah, these things took me out. But to be 4 episodes into a 6-episode show and have the first criticism is insane. Like
Not
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm enjoying this a ton. I can't wait for the last 2. As long as they're longer than 38 minutes. That's like
Yes.
I'll die on that hill. Like 38 that's too short, man. It's too
Stranger
short. We need
Things
more
this.
than
Give
that.
me 2-hour episodes. I don't even care.
That might be a bit of a stretch, but
All right,
still,
fine.
still.
Give me 48 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Wes, what about you?
I like to see the growth of Obi-Wan. Like Obi-Wan was the Jedi Master, and now he is trying to relearn his Force abilities, and seeing that like gradually play out through these episodes is just bringing me more and more and more into the show. So, part 5. I mean, what can you do next?
I am so excited to see what happens next. My biggest prediction: last week we got the Tala Funko. This week, I think Little Leia. I think we're finally getting the Little Leia Funko. I'm never gonna hope for the Bail Organa one yet. He's not in it enough. No. So excited. I can't believe we're getting more of it. I think it sets such a great bar. And from what we've seen of Andor so far, even in the trailer, I think these 2 shows being back to back is setting a new bar for Star Wars show quality. And I'm so beyond excited. Quick plug, if you are watching us live tonight, thank you. We love you all so much. We hope it's a great way to end your weekend. Tomorrow night, the 4 of us will be back on the Living Force. We are just going to have a celebration episode about Attack of the Clones. We recently celebrated the 20th anniversary of episode 2, and because of celebration, we had such a packed month, we didn't get to just properly kick back and talk about what we loved about the old Attack of the Clones. So join us tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube. We're going to be doing the same thing. If you're listening to us on audio podcast, that's great. We're going to be coming out with that this week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. But come on into live chat tomorrow night. Share your favorite Zam Wessel and young Boba Fett takes and Padme, all that good stuff. I can't wait. And then a week from tomorrow, we're going to be starting our Star Wars Brotherhood Roundtable to talk even more Obi-Wan. It's Obi-Wan month. It's Obi-Wan summer. Get out of here, hot girl summer. It's Obi-Wan summer.
Hot
And with
summer.
that, I'm not gonna better than that, guys. That will do it. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Bounty Hunt. Keep your eyes out for our next hunt next week, and we'll be diving into episode 5 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. A special thank you to Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C, and Sally and Chris Eilerson and our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. Go ahead and tell us your thoughts about Obi-Wan Kenobi in our Discord community at utn.com/Discord. Use those spoiler tags, be polite. And be sure to follow our main show at Living Force Pod and all of us on Twitter for our latest thoughts about all things Star Wars. I'm at Eric Eilerson, Corey is at Corey M. Helton, Charles is at C. Henkel, and Wes is at Boss Wes. Until next time, God, 2 left. Make them longer!